Hi, I'm Stephen Droby. I am the designer of Mars Base. Mars Base is a 4-player co-op game that takes around 30 to 45 minutes to play. The concept is that players build a base using their base cards in order to complete the objectives. The objectives are 5 missions as shown on the mission tracker. They include power, habitat, agricultural, geological, and robotics. If the players complete these 5 missions, they win. However, if their base is destroyed before they are able to complete these missions, they lose. The game is set up by placing the mission tracker with the mission tracking cubes onto the table. The power tokens are also placed onto the table. The hazard cards are then shuffled into their own deck and placed face down onto the table. The base cards are then shuffled into their own deck. Each player is dealt 3 face-up base cards as their starting hand. The remaining base cards are face down on the table. The first player is whoever can name all of the planets in the solar system before anyone else. The base play area is limited to 3 cards by 3 cards, for a total of 9 base cards. There are 5 parts to a round. First are the player turns. Second is the mission tracking. Third is revealing the hazard. Fourth is determining player turns. Fifth is drawing cards. Each round, players take turns. The first round, all players will have a turn. They take their turns in a clockwise order. On a player's turn, they play a base card onto the base. Base cards can be played into free spaces where there is no base card, or on top of pre-existing cards or destroyed cards. Only face-up base cards can be activated. Base cards have a name, the power they generate or use, a possible primary function, and a possible secondary function. Base cards have icons that help determine what that base card does. There are 8 icons in Mars Base. Power, which generates or uses that number of power per round. Habitat, which houses that number of players per round. Agricultural, which generates that number of agricultural science per round for the agricultural mission. Geological, that generates that number of geological science per round for the geological mission. Robotics, that generates that number of robotics science per round for the robotics mission. Meals, that feed that number of players per round. Expand adds that number of base card spaces adjacent to that base card. It only applies vertically or horizontally of that card. Base cards in the expanded areas are destroyed when the base card with expand is destroyed. Boost increases the scientific generation of an adjacent card by that number. It only applies to cards vertically and horizontally of that card. Scientific cards include agricultural, geological, and robotics. Mission tracking takes place after all players with a turn have taken their turn. Players add up the total number of power tokens available based on the base cards that generate power. For the power mission, place the mission tracking cube on the number for the total number of power tokens generated. Place power tokens on base cards to match the power needed to activate them, noted by the negative power number. Only activated base cards are able to use their primary and secondary functions. For the habitat mission, place its mission tracking cube on the total number of activated habitats available. For the agricultural, geological, and robotics missions, move their mission tracking cubes the number of spaces that their respective base cards generate that round. A mission is completed once the highest number tracked is filled. After a mission is completed, it can no longer be affected. After tracking all of the missions for that round, clear all the power tokens. The hazard is revealed once the mission tracking is completed. The hazard is revealed by flipping over the top hazard card from the hazard deck. The hazard's effects are immediate and only for that round. If the hazard deck runs out, shuffle it. Destroying a base card can only happen to face-up base cards. If it is flipped face down, it symbolizes that it's being destroyed. The players then determine the player turns for the next round. In order for a player to have a turn, they must have a meal and a house, and each player can only have one turn per round. Players in the next round will draw a card. If a player does not have a turn in the next round, they do not draw a card. If the deck runs out of cards to draw, then players must destroy a part of the base by flipping over a face-up base card. The game ends if the players were able to complete all the missions before the Mars base is destroyed. If the Mars base is destroyed, the players fail.